So the easiest way I could introduce you to my audience is, hey everybody, this is Brioche. They are the creator of BreadPanes, which is a political satire comic that currently has over 100 issues published. Generally, most of them I see through Twitter. But is there any extrapolation on that you'd like to make in introducing yourself?
Well, yeah, Twitter's the main place I publish them. I also put them on Instagram and some subreddits till I got banned.
That tends to happen the most.
And I've been trying to fight it for over a month now. Well, not quite over a month, but
that
Jesus
tends to
Christ,
happen.
Reddit moderation is awful.
There's if there is one thing the left and the right can both agree on, it is that Reddit moderators are actually narcissistic, power-hungry assholes.
No, not Reddit moderators. The actual site admins. I got site banned.
Oh. Well, them too, but Jesus. And just for posting content.
I don't know. I got banned for the most vague thing imaginable. Never was given a reason. I've been trying to bloody appeal it for like over 3 weeks. Still haven't received a response.
Jesus.
It's a joke.
Yeah, I would imagine that would be a bit of an issue. My biggest issue that I usually run into is like trying to post onto subreddits and then seeing their little rule of like, you need to post like 50 times else you're gonna get in trouble. Like having to engage in the Reddit before posting on the Reddit, and I'm just like, I don't want to engage on Reddit. That's like the last thing I want to do.
You ended up on R196 then, I guess.
Ease. One of my model artists has asked in the chat, can you ask the guests if they have these weird as fuck canned cinnamon rolls or whatever?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay, so here in the States, we have cinnamon rolls that are in a can. You get them at the supermarket. They have to stay cold, else the can explodes. But if you get the can home and forget to put it in the fridge, it's a bomb. It's literally that. It will explode. I have stories. But they are, I guess, in a nation where everybody has guns, having food that is explosive isn't exactly, like, too far off the
Don't
trail.
let you have... Aren't Kinder Eggs banned over there?
They used to be. We actually got them back a couple years ago. But the way that we got them back was they had to make the, they had to put the toy in, like, a special container inside the egg to make sure that you wouldn't inhale the toy, I guess. But yeah, Kinder Eggs were banned here for a while.
Well, that's always how it was. I mean, that's how it was here. They were never banned here, though, so I don't know.
Knockkeeper, thank you for the 100 bits. So I think we can go ahead and get things a little underway and go ahead and just ask the very first question here, one of the more important ones. You do make some of the most immediately recognizable political satire comics on this corner of the internet. Like, as soon as I see the stark red and blues and the 4-panel structure, I'm like, oh, okay, it's BreadPanes. I don't even have to look at the account. I already know. So what made you want to actually step into this realm of just utter toxicity and polarization?
Good question. Good first question. Well, I used to be a YouTuber, but it went nowhere. And I wanted to get back into some sort of content creation after a while. Like, you know, I felt like I had something to say, but I couldn't say it. There was nowhere for me to say it. So, in the end, I thought, okay, what can I do instead of YouTube? Because my YouTube career went nowhere. I didn't even get 1,000 subscribers. It was pointless. And in the end, I settled on doing cartoons, webcomics, that type of thing. And the idea behind it was, there was a Thought Slime video back when I watched him before he did the bloody...
Can I take a guess at which one? Is it the Stone Toss one?
It is.
Yeah, okay. I figured it was the one on Stone Toss.
Yeah, it made me think about, hang on, what if there was a leftist comic that tried to do a similar sort of thing? I tried to deliver jokes similarly, had an eye-catching art style, that type of thing. And after like 3-4 months of like doing a trial run of it, I decided to, in November 2019, start the thing up officially. And that's when I kind of switched to the weekly comic production, getting them out every Friday, well, usually. And it seemed to work for the most part, and,
You know, in chat, a couple of people are asking Stone Toss. Okay, for those who don't know, Stone Toss is a content creator who does webcomics, but Stone Toss is very... I don't want to say he's right-leaning. I want to just say he's alt-right. Because when he does his comics, eventually you get the idea that he's trying to lead people down Nazi rabbit holes. Like,
I mean, he makes Holocaust denial stuff.
Yeah, that's why I was like, I don't want to be like, he's a right-leaning content creator. Like, no, that sells Stone Toss short. He is much further than that. He is definitely one of the few people on the planet I would willingly call a Nazi, right up there with Richard Spencer. But he seems to revel in that kind of shit. It's like you have no Nazis in your hole, the nerve. Oh, yeah, no. Stone Toss is a Nazi. But that's interesting that it was literally it was a video critiquing a bottom-of-the-barrel popular but garbage content creator that made you go, okay, what if I did that, but not garbage?
I guess, and then some other people got into it after Vaush made his video. He made a video about it eventually, and that got some other people into it. Many of them don't produce anymore, which is a shame, but, you know, it feels like I've seen people come and go, and it's like, I'm still here. It's like, what?
That's
Am I still here?
So that's one of the weird things that you get you get that in a lot of content creator spaces, like in the atheist content creator space, which is where I started. Started on this particular route, just seeing people pop in, get their like 10 or 12 videos out with their arguments, and then they just kind of stop, either because they get nowhere or they get tired of the toxicity. Or even like there's an entire subculture around not being a content creator, but leaving as a content creator in the VTuber sphere. Because apparently I am connected to all the weird places on the internet. But like in the VTuber sphere, it's called graduating, and there's entire events around it. And I'm like, there's so much celebration around leaving content creation. It's strange. But it then
there's like this culture of self-depreciation almost. It's like, yeah, this sucks. And oh look, he got out of it. Well done. I remember back when I was on the Reddit, I think it was Chapo Trap House before it got quarantined.
Mm-hmm.
And when it got quarantined, people were like celebrating it. All the people were celebrating it. They're like, yay, I'm free.
So chat is asking for a couple of examples of your comics. I'm going to toss a few of them on screen real quick for everybody. The first one we have up here is this is I'm sure everybody's had this argument at one point where somebody's like, you keep calling me this bad thing, so I had no choice to become one, that I need to become the monster that you're telling me. So okay, idea, you're a communist now. Bam. We'll just call you a communist, see if it works. Another one that we have here. This one's, so I'm not sure if you have these, if you've seen these, or if they've made it anywhere besides just where I live. But there's these stickers, the I did that stickers that people keep on putting on gas pumps that have Joe Biden's face on them.
Yeah, I know what you're on about. The pictures of Biden, yeah.
Yeah, so this comic right here, like what people think the president does versus what the president actually does. That would make the elephant mad, Jack. Like, that thing happens all the time here, and I sometimes wonder how much people think the president can actually do. Like, don't get me wrong, his power foundation has gotten stronger. Like, that office has gotten stronger over the last 30 years, but they don't have absolute dictatorial power over the economy.
I mean, it's the same in the UK as well with Labour. They're weak as hell. Like, ever since Corbyn failed because the media ran him into the ground, tried to smear him as a communist, a red backdrop of the bloody Moscow Kremlin on screen with him, it was like, oh my god.
Jeez.
They really went went to the deep end on that, and then he lost in 2019. And what Labour is saying is, oh, we need to purge all the left wing out of our party, and they're going back to the Blairite, you know, how they were during Tony Blair, and god damn, they have no opposition.
It kind of gets weird. It kind of gets weird for the Labour Party to try to remove the side of politics that is constantly fighting for workers' rights.
It's pretty ironic, isn't it?
It's very straight. Yeah, Salem's just like, but Labour's supposed to be left-wing, isn't it? So you have to remember, in the UK, Salem, they have a parliamentary system, so the parties are not as diametrically opposed the way they are in the United States, where we just have the Dems and the Republicans, and anybody that says, but there are third parties, no, there are not. Please don't.
Well, for the most part, it kind of is a two-party thing, unless you happen to live in one of the few seats that elects, you know, other candidates from other parties. The system here is not like, say, Germany, where every government's a coalition. No, most of them here are majority governments of one party.
So it just ends up being like there's a parliament in name, but in function, that's not what ends up happening.
Well, it is a parliament.
No, what I'm meaning to say is, like, here, there's you have the two. That is all you will ever get, unfortunately. Whereas there, even though there are more options that are theoretically available, it still ends up being a divide between two sides.
Usually, yeah.
Yeah, that is unfortunate that it ends up being that way, but that explains why. So I have a friend who works with me on Sunset City, Channel Pup, who's from the UK too, and every now and again, he gets very, very angry at things that have been happening in his local political sphere, and I can understand why, because it feels like the way that UK politics works, at least on paper, is better than what we have in the United States, but you guys are still experiencing the same kind of rightward slide that we are.
We still have first past the post. We had an option to repeal first past the post in favor of proportional representation in 2011. The vote failed, unfortunately. Oh god, I wish that went through. It would make our politics a lot better. Actually, I would prefer my most preferable common voting system would be like ranked choice voting. I think that one's the best out of the common ones, I'll say.
So I do have another question on the obviously quite a few questions to go through, but I do have another question on the realm of not just becoming a political satirist, but also just becoming an artist. Was there anyone specifically that inspired you to be an artist? Not necessarily just doing political stuff, but just in general.
I've been dabbling in art for years. Probably like almost a decade at this point. I kind of like developed my style myself, more or less. I guess I'll like get influences here or there, but I won't really think about it. I won't think about myself as being inspired by someone else's art. It'll just be things that develop. So I'll have like ideas that I want to go for, like, okay, I want it to be bright, colourful, eye-catching, somewhat cute, you know, and put all that together, and you know, in the end, you get your style. I feel like it is a bit limiting sometimes, though, because, you know, you'll try and do other projects, but you've been doing one style for so long, you're kind of, like, stuck doing that, and you can't really escape it.
True.
Because you see all the benefits in that style, and it's hard for you to move into something else. I feel like I'm getting stuck in that kind of situation at the moment with my current style.
Your style is very recognizable, though. I will say that. Like I said it earlier, but the really saturated colors, the incredibly thick line work that you use on everything, like it makes it.
Yeah, sure.
It makes it very easy to see what it is, but I can also see that, like, there's a lot of styles you can't really bleed into with that. Though I will say, since the style does lend itself to simplicity, you may be able to move into animation with it.
Maybe. I think I've got a problem where I tend to like creep further complexity into my work over time. And it kind of like loses the point the style initially had, if you know what I mean.
Well, yeah, because like the way it is right now, it's like very you have the idea of a stick figure, and then you give it a lot of detail, and that's about what we have with your characters. If you start adding a bunch of detail to it, it's like, okay, well at that point, what's the argument for not putting a jawbone on? And then you go, oh wait, no, now I'm just drawing something completely different.
I guess some fundamentals have stayed the same though, so fully analogous. But yeah, I know where you're coming from.
Yeah, I know that I can definitely feel the issue of feeling like you're stuck doing one particular thing. It's actually the reason why I moved into politics, because when I was doing the atheist content creation, after a while I felt very almost claustrophobic with it, if that makes sense. Or I was like, okay,
I guess we're kind of the same in some regards, because that's what initially got me into politics. The whole atheism versus religion debate. Of course, I wasn't a content creator back then, but I saw the story of how online politics evolved. It went from atheists ridiculing all these like religious channels out here. They all dried up. Then the atheists became the skeptic community. Then that became men's rights stuff, and then that became, you know, more reactionary alt-right stuff.
Yeah, you get
stuff like that.
You get the anti-SJW stuff out of that. And there weren't that many of the atheist content creators that became just the SJWs in that particular dichotomy.
Steve Shives is one name, I think.
Steve Shives is one, and then over time, other creators like Cult of Dusty ended up going in that direction too. But it was definitely the majority of atheist content creation moved into the anti-SJW sphere, because like all of the same arguments, all the same like intuitively correct arguments ended up working on both ends. If somebody can just have the argument about like God not existing, they have the God am not real, and that's the one thing they do, and then somebody goes, gender's a spectrum, or gender's sociological. It's very easy to take all of those same slotted arguments and just go, no, gender biological. It's the same components.
That is true. The right often has these very intuitive arguments to make. It's very easy to argue, say, that men shouldn't participate in women's sports. It's a very intuitive argument. That despite all the studies done, it's hard for the experts who know that, you know, differences happen when people transition, you know, hormone therapy, all that. And they can't really make the argument as well as, well, men don't belong in women's sports, duh. You know, yeah. They can't do it.
It's you have to take, so what's the best way to put it? It's the power of the Gish Gallop, right? It's so
power
easy.
Of the intuitive argument, I'd say. It's an intuitive argument that's easy to grasp. That seems to be the case.
It's also one of the underlying components of the Gish Gallop. Like, throw a bunch of things that are wrong, but like really intuitively simple that people can grasp onto. You spend so much time deconstructing why each individual thing is wrong. By the time you're done, everybody's already moved on. Like, people have gotten bored from that point.
You have to pick your points. You can't argue against all that.
No, and it's awful, but that's kind of what it ends up being. You just go, okay. That's one of the reasons why I think that that video responses are so popular, is that you can actually take that time and sit down and deconstruct an argument, as opposed to like a live debate, which definitely have their place, and I'm definitely, you know, proud of those of us that can do live debate really easily. But it's certainly harder to deconstruct a myriad of intuitively correct but ostensibly wrong positions when you're doing it live.
Sure, I agree with that. I think we need, like, everyone. We need all the different methods we can use. I'm very fond of diversity of tactics. I'm very strong proponent of that.
That's where I ended up as well. Like, I have a video called Pragmatic Leftism, and it basically goes in. The thesis of it is pretty much just, hey, you might not like debate bros, or you might not like video essayists, or you might not like React Andes, but at the end of the day, different people are convinced by different styles of content. And if we're all trying to do the same thing and convince the same people, a myriad of tactics is just by and large more useful than sticking to one and going the other ones are bad.
Yeah, I will say one thing right now. I want more blue-collar, you know, rural, 40-acre owning guys with trucker hats and beards saying why left-wing politics are good. I want more of that.
I want more Beau the Fifth columns, too.
I do, yeah. Absolutely. That's what we need.
More
pickup truck owning land owning, man, real common sense like that.
Look, I'm here to tell you why workers need to get their shit together. Now, I was talking to my boss the other day, and he told me that I could not ask for a raise, and he'd fire me if I didn't. Now, that would have been a bad thing if I couldn't go, you know, walk my happy ass down to the union, and we put on a strike. And, you know, now I make enough to feed my kids.
Absolutely. More like that.
Luckily... Oh, sorry, go on.
I feel like a lot of, like, you know, these rural farm labourer, you know, be more left-wing than they are. I think the left has kind of abandoned them almost.
So here in the States, that is... I say this as somebody who is in District 14 of Georgia, which is Marjorie Taylor Greene's district.
Oh, wow.
That is 100% correct. If you walk around any neighborhood here, especially just like any urban neighborhood, or suburban neighborhood, you will see nothing but just like a flood of flood the polls signs for Marjorie Taylor Greene. Her shit is everywhere. And yet, if you were to ask any of those people, what is she going to do for you? The most they can tell you is, oh, she's going to stop socialism. Because that was her previous thing.
Which means what exactly?
Yeah, exactly.
I'll tell you what it means. It's a wedge issue.
It is a wedge issue.
She's not going to do anything for them. She never has. She never will. All she's there for is to enrichen the coffers of big oil and all the lobbyists out there. But she'll put on a facade of pretending to be on your side.
No, and that's the thing.
That's
like
the entire Republican Party, actually.
Down here, there is a lot of people who feel disenfranchised by the Democrats, and to be fair, Fox News does a lot of the legwork in making making that feel the case. My stepdad has it on almost 24/7. I have friends of mine who are conservative, and like I find myself having to argue against their points that are taken directly from Tucker Carlson every now and again, and it's just a matter of habit at this point. This is just the reality of being here. So when you point out that like they've been abandoned, on the one hand, yeah, kind of. On the other hand, like there's a lot of propaganda that's making it feel that way terribly as well, and it's hard to figure out how to handle that. I had somebody on my channel a while ago who was a member of the Democratic Party and was going to be running against Marjorie Taylor Greene before party support for her platform got cut. And of all the reasons it got cut, it was cut because she was cosplaying. Because
they don't care.
Because the Democratic Party... Like
the Democratic Party is just kind of controlled opposition for the most part. They are better, that's true. But they don't really want to fight. They just want to be angry. I feel like that's a lot of politics, actually. They just want to be angry.
If you can rile a base, you can keep your seat. And if you can keep your seat, you're doing U.S. politics.
Exactly.
That's a bit of an issue. Lurbleck says, wait, what? Yeah, no, it's Brady Tenenbaum. It's an older video on my channel. It's an older version of my model. It looked very awkward back then. But yeah, like literally cosplaying and doing just stuff privately that had nothing to do with politics is the reason the Democratic Party cut her off. And now we've got Holly and Marcus Flowers fighting it out to see which one of them is going to be beat by Marjorie.
I think the best way to beat these like really bad Republicans, we need to have like progressives running in the Republican Party or something. Why doesn't that happen?
So there is, and I can't remember her name, but there was one person. It was on TikTok for a little while. There was one person who actually tried doing that, where they were a registered Republican, like running for a seat, but all of their positions were very progressive, and it was really weird. But I do think there is certainly merit to trying to shift that party more to the left, because that will cause one of two scenarios to happen. Either Southern Strategy 2 Electric Boogaloo, where the Democrats get to go full-on right again, or, alternatively, they start having to have more left-wing positions to fight against the Overton window shift, which would be great. But
which, yeah, would improve politics in general, to be honest.
It really would. And I don't know, there's a lot of agitating conversations here with how easily propagandized a lot of the stuff is. The Southern Strategy screwed a lot of things up.
Absolutely. I feel like you could you've got some wedge issues to work around, and I guess you're going to be talking about one of those later on in the stream.
Not just that. There's a lot of stuff that, so Roe v. Wade isn't just about abortion. It's hinged on privacy. There's a lot of cascading rulings that have happened over the last 50 years that have to do with that, that all kind of come into question if Roe gets overturned.
Yeah, they're like in the works of doing that. I feel like you could. I mean, it's not like I'd agree with them on everything, but if you had like some people pushing, you know, economic left-wing stuff, economic, like, genuine populist stuff, and so often you got to throw a bone to the Republican establishment sort of with some wedge issue, like maybe the pro-life, but the really progressive on other issues. That would be an improvement over what's currently there. If someone ran against, let's say, Marjorie Taylor Greene on such a platform in the Republican Party, maybe that would be the best thing to do.
There is, I can't remember their name. Like I remember the Democrats we have running against her, but there is one Republican who's basically running on the platform of, this woman is insane, let's bring dignity back to Congress. And they're Republican. I don't know if they're going to be any better or worse, but like their platform is literally, this woman is crazy.
It just sounds like the Mitt Romney approach to me.
It's also, unfortunately, it's also the Donald Trump approach. Not his approach, but the approach you have to take with Trump. It is, no matter what issues you have, like no matter what your voting record, you literally could build an entire platform on, I'm not Trump. And it worked.
Weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, Hillary tried that and it failed, so I don't know.
True, but we hadn't had 4 years of Trump quite yet. We did when Biden came through.
Yeah, but Biden had more. He had the infrastructure stuff. I think that's what carried him through.
He also was the vice president of Obama, who was one of the more popular presidents from the Democrats. So, like, there was a lot of things that came through.
Yeah, Obama's popularity was going up after the end of his term, so I can see that.
So, speaking of, I mean, this entire thing is about politics, all things considered. But speaking of politics, what actually was your political journey? Because you gave brief mention that you started, content creation wise, watching the atheist stuff, and then moving to political stuff from there. But journey wise, I want to know what steps you took from where. I'm curious, because everybody's got a different story here.
Story, or how long are you willing to listen to me for? I'll just ask that question first.
Tell you what, we have about an hour to kill, and that we've got plenty of time. So, however you want to go about it.
I guess we'll start off in I guess I'll start off when I was 10 years old, because that's kind of where it started.
Okay.
Yeah. So I want to clarify one thing first. Mm-hmm. In the UK, our I'm going to call it state schools, because there's a weird thing over here, and it pisses me off that the term public school in the UK means private school. I have no idea why. Anyway, so all the schools, you know, controlled by the state, there is like national school prayer here, still is. And one day, I think after learning about evolution, we had a prayer on the same day, and I just openly didn't pray. I was like defiant about it. Basically stood up in the middle of assembly and said, God doesn't exist. Because what I was learning was, well, the creation myth is like God did all this stuff, and then I'm learning about this alternate idea that makes a whole lot more sense of evolution. And I'm like, okay, well, if this isn't true, why should I believe you on anything else? You lied to me once. Why should I believe you on everything else?
That happens to a lot of people.
That was my first dabble into politics. And then, I guess one way to look at my political journey is I've always been pro-freedom. Consistently so. I have always been looking towards the biggest amount of freedom possible. And that leads you down some routes, let's just say. Now, I come from a family of, like, coal miners and stuff like that. Very, very hands-on work. People, you know, work hard. It was a lot of union activity around here. So, my family is mostly quite left-wing, which is unlike many people, to be honest. Anyway, I went through secondary school and was gradually drifting towards kind of a right-wing libertarian position. Again, I'm looking to maximize freedom. That's where that leads me. And I go through this arc of being, like, really anti-schooling. I think school should be voluntary. I think school's, like, brainwashing people, all that. I was, like, really into that sort of debate at that time. And then, eventually, I think I became an ANCAP for a single day. Right?
For all of a day?
A single day.
Okay.
And then I read up on anarchism, which led me to left-wing anarchism. I thought, holy crap, this makes a whole lot more sense. Like, this actually is freedom. We're not free if it just happens to be a business owner who is monopolizing the freedom instead of the state.
You had like half a minute with Ayn Rand.
I actually never read Ayn Rand, thank God. So what I learned about freedom was there's not more or less freedom. That's not a thing. What it is it's how freedom is distributed. A totalitarian society has absolute maximum freedom for the tyrant. A single tyrant has absolute maximum freedom to do whatever the fuck they want. And everyone else has absolutely zero freedom in this hypothetical world. So, what is maximum freedom then? Well, to me, it's a world where freedom is as well equally distributed across everyone as possible. And that is, in the end, what led me towards actual anarchism. Not fake hierarchy, fake anarchism, you know?
Where they go, I am an ANCAP. Okay, cool. So what about the oligarchy? Oh, that's fine. That's legitimate. But why? Well, they have money. Why does that matter?
Well, in the end, they'll like say it's voluntary and stuff, and then I used to use like an old version. This was before Coconut Island became a thing, but I used to argue something like this to ANCAPs. Imagine you were hanging off the edge of a cliff, okay? You're losing grip, you're about to fall to your death, and suddenly I come along, I offer you a rope, and say, okay, I will rescue you if you promise to be my slave for the rest of your life. And you grab onto the rope and you're like, okay, do I agree or not? And I'm like, well, I'm not forcing you to do anything. I'm not physically coercing you. It's just that maybe I'll let go of this rope if you disagree, you know? I don't know.
And this is where we get to
I'll just leave you there.
This is where we get to the conversations about choices versus ultimatums.
Yeah.
Like
the idea of voluntarism doesn't really mean anything. You can have an absolute voluntary society, but do you know what that looks like? An absolute negative freedom society with absolutely zero positive freedom. It just means you stumble around in the desert for a week until you die of thirst. That's what that means.
Yeah, it ends up being... What was the... what was the best way to put it? I actually had a friend of mine a while ago who did call themselves a voluntarist, and the world that they painted was like an everyman's an island, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Are you gonna go grow fruit? Are you gonna cook your? Are you gonna make your own beef? Are you gonna raise cows? He's like, why would that matter? Well, every man's an island, right? I mean, nobody has to make the food. So what happens now? Do you just die?
I guess.
like we're in. And he goes, well, that wouldn't happen. I'm like, oh, but it can. Food deserts exist. Well, people are incentivized to bring food here because money. Oh, so the society has money now because not all of them across the span of history have. Like, it just creates this weird... It creates this weird world where, like, they have to keep on stacking qualifiers on top of it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. So, I'll get back to my political journey. At this point, I was an ANCOM, alright? And, I guess over time, I start drifting because I fell into this weird internet cult, almost. It's really hard to describe it. It wasn't, like, a big established thing. It was like this one guy who made all these promises. He promised the world to me. I, based on some disabilities I haven't been able to work, so in the end I kind of fall onto him as sort of a safety thing. Like, there's a storm coming, I grab onto the post so I don't get blown away in the storm. Anyway, it turns out that the post, it wasn't dug into anything, so I just flew away in the storm regardless, He promised everything, but never delivered. But kept sweet-talking me and, saying I'm smart, saying I'm strong, saying I'm this, I'm that. All bullshit.
That sounds like love bombing.
It is. That's exactly what it is. I learnt about that later on. Because I got very into the idea of, like, studying cults and stuff. I was, like, very into that and seeing how I could apply that to, like, political de-radicalization and stuff. Which is something I'm very fond of today.
Okay, so that's I'm not sure if you're familiar with the creator Telltale on YouTube.
Yes, I am very familiar.
But
I think I've watched every one of his videos.
Owen is a wonderful person. If you ever get the chance to meet him, I will just say that. I've spoken on panels with him at Faithless Forum before, but their content is outstanding. If anybody has not seen their stuff, like, they have an entire, like, Fibonacci sequence. They have an entire Fibonacci sequence diagram now that they use for showing, like, okay, this is a cult at this level, this is a cult at this level. Very, very thorough.
I know what you mean. I mean, he started off with, like, Stephen Hassan's bite model, if I remember correctly.
True, but then he came to the same conclusion that a lot of people do with Hassan, is just, okay, so well, not Hassan, that's different Hassan. Is that we look at the bite model and go, okay, this can vaguely get us to the idea that something is or is not a cult in, like, a binary sense, but it can't tell us how extreme one is. Whereas I think Owen...
Could you answer the question, is QAnon a cult?
Could I answer the question, QAnon is a cult? So, personally, I would say it is one. However, it is a very loose one.
Yeah, you could say that. I mean, that's where models like that kind of struggle. Built for established, strongly stratified hierarchical organizations that control a lot of people's lives.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, QAnon is not exactly that. It's very
decentralized.
I don't know if that's the word I'd use. It's not very organized. It's spontaneous, I guess, is the word I'm looking for.
Decentralization implies that there's a deliberateness to it, whereas it's more just like impulsive reacting.
It's just came around. It's just how things developed based on prior things like the evangelical movement, which was already heading down that path, to be honest.
And also a lot of the Alex Jones conspiracy theory types. It was a step further from that.
Well, it used to be that Alex Jones was, like, extremely fringe. Like, crazy. That shit insane. you'd like watching to laugh at him. It'd be kind of a comedy thing.
Awkwardly,
but now things that just he was saying, you just regularly hear on Fox News today. Tucker Carlson saying all sorts of shit.
No, posing with Blair White too now, because apparently it's cheap to do that now.
Yeah.
But I've mentioned this on previous videos, but I used to be an Alex Jones fan. Back when I was
Ironically, or unironically?
Unironically. So here's the very quick story, because this is more about you and less about me. When I was in high school, I had a friend who introduced me to the movie Zeitgeist. And it was at the time that I was an evangelical Christian. And his purpose was to try to deconvert me. That was what he was trying to do. And as I was watching the movie, my brain like put this into the like, this is a test of my faith category. And I just kind of steeled myself towards it. But the parts that we're talking about 9/11 and the parts that we're talking about like the co-opting of Christianity, those I ended up keeping, and I started getting into watching. I watched the second Zeitgeist movie, which is ironically more factually sound than the first one, weirdly. But after that, I started looking into the individual creators that contributed to the version of Zeitgeist that I watched. This included the kids who did the loose change theory, as well as the ones that got owned on live television by a group of engineers and thought that, aha, we actually owned you. And then started also watching Alex Jones because he had a lot of segments in Zeitgeist as well. When I started watching him, I was still a right-wing evangelical. So when he would say things like, I guess there's one more component I need to throw in. I was a Left Behind fan, so I ruthlessly studied Revelations. Like, I took a class on it and everything. And like that whole end of the world, the Antichrist is coming, like all of that was me. That was the stuff that I was thoroughly ingrained into. And at the time, Alex Jones spoke a lot to that. I mean, he still does when he's doing things like, aha, when the Antichrist comes, you have to buy gold because it's the only thing that will maintain value when the mark of the beast comes in. I remember like panicking about getting the swine flu vaccine, or because I thought it had the mark of the beast embedded in a chip, because that's what they did to Lionel in the Left Behind series, literally. And as a result, like that was just who I was at the time. So the idea to me, like Alex Jones was fringe, to me, no, Alex Jones was just my world at that moment. I recognize now in hindsight the amount of batshit craziness that was spewing from his mouth, but at the time, it all made sense to me. And that's not a good thing.
I feel like a lot of stuff has kind of stayed the same. You were speaking about what was going on for his swine flu, and a lot of that is like happening today as well. People talking about the vaccine has microchips in it. That's one big example.
The difference now versus then, what the internet was then was a collection of sites that fringe users used every now and again, and then boomers used it for email. Now, it is the backbone of modern communication, and it was not that at that point quite yet. So
I don't fully remember, to be honest.
Gotcha. Well, I'm 30, so I can remember a internet was fringe and not in everybody's households type of time still.
I remember that a little bit, but not too much.
Said, when was swine flu? Wasn't it like 2010? No.
2009, I think.
2008, 2009 is about when that was. So, like, Facebook was just coming into being, which, for those who might not remember, Facebook was kind of the portal where all ages started using the internet more. Like, before that,
oh my God, that's one thing. I remember when it was cool to be a teenager and have a Facebook account.
Yeah. Like, for the longest...
I remember when that was a cool thing.
Well, because we were all hopping off of MySpace. We were all hopping off of MySpace. We were like, no.
Yeah.
MySpace is dead. Facebook is better. Like, okay, why? Can I customize my page with my favorite music like I can on MySpace? No. Everybody's got the same kind of profile. Okay, that's not better. Remember what they took from you.
I tell you what got really big in that time. All these, like, baseball games, they were huge.
Oh, yeah. Farmville?
Farmville, yeah. Absolutely.
That was the gateway drug. Like, your grandma didn't hop onto Facebook to talk with you. No. You had long since gotten old enough. No, she was on Farmville sending you 16,872 invites that you left in your inbox without reading them because fuck you, grandma. I'm done. I don't want to do Farmville.
I remember it with Candy Crush. You'd like finish a series of the levels, and to get to the next, I guess, chapter, series, whatever, you'd have to have three friends to get you through there. God, I remember hating those friend barriers so much because, let's just say I wasn't a very popular person, okay?
So you had Facebook games to keep you company, too.
Before that, it was Flash games.
Yeah, people in chat are mentioning Miniclip.
Yeah, I guess that's one of them.
Newgrounds was another big one.
I most went on.
Armor Games was good, too. I remember in high school, we used to take a lot of Armor Games, games and download them to flash drives so that we could play them using the Macromedia player at school. And that was
I actually downloaded a program now to access all the Flash games. I've just got it on my computer now.
Nice.
Yeah.
I miss that era of the internet.
Yeah. There was like 3 big ones, I think. Well, there was Newgrounds as well, but I don't really remember that one too well. But it was all Armor Games, Addicting Games, and Miniclip.
Newgrounds was the hybrid site, basically. Like, there were a lot of good games on Newgrounds, but for the most part, Newgrounds was the place you could go to watch uncompressed video. Like,
yeah, it was like a lot of like indie animators got the start on there, I think.
Yep, and a lot of that was because YouTube's compression at the time ruined video quality, like, to the nth degree. There was tons of artifacting on all videos, but if you had your video on Newgrounds, the lines were crisp and the sound was great. There was a whole culture of stealing people's content and throwing it onto YouTube.
Right. I'll probably trigger some people's nostalgia bones at this point. I'm just gonna say one thing: cool math games.
I was never somebody who used cool math games too terribly much, but I know a lot of people my age really did. Really did.
Oh, it was huge. It was huge here because you know how schools would block all these websites.
Yep.
Not school maths, bloody hell. Cool maths too often. That would often sneak through. And as it got pretty big.
So awkwardly, I went to a technical high school, and as a result of that, most of the blocks that the school tried to put on things, everybody got around by using proxies. Like, there was just this network of accepted proxies that everybody passed around so that they could do whatever they wanted.
Like, the school kind of develops its almost black market underground trade thing, sort of.
Basically. I mean, it was between that and the USB drive passing, where we would have all the Flash games, and
yeah, people did that. People did that here as well.
Did they do emulators at the same time for you guys? Because
no, not emulators. I don't remember that being much of a thing.
So for us, I remember there was I remember watching the Cisco class when the teacher was out, because I was in AOIT, Academy of Information Technology, and the Cisco class was taught right next to our classroom, so we could like peer in every now and again. And I would just see the kids on, if the teacher wasn't in, just playing F-Zero on the N64 emulators. And I'm just like, oh my god, I wish I could be doing that. But our teacher never leaves, ever, and he's constantly viewing our screens. If you did something you weren't supposed to do, he would automatically just like broadcast your screen to the rest of the class.
Oh my god.
Yep. Just awful. Awful. But no, my nostalgic bones are definitely tickled at the moment. There's a lot of that stuff. I miss that. I remember bringing my laptop in and in gym, just like hiding behind the bleachers and playing Command and Conquer with my friends via LAN.
Oh, right.
When we were supposed to be doing gym. Like, the gym teacher didn't care. It was in case, like, one of the deans walked in, we had to be hiding.
Oh, right, I see.
Yeah.
I guess there are, like, some cool teachers out there.
There are a few. I actually had my history teacher on for an episode at one point.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because so there was a particular lesson that made me go, actually, I think he would be really good to bring on. He was teaching the class about the slave trade, and the way that he did it was we all would. Normally, you would line up and wait to get into the class. The teacher would get in, then he'd let everybody in. So everybody was lined up. People were only being let in one at a time, which is not normal. Turns out what was happening was the students were having their hands duct taped behind their backs, and all the desks had been rearranged into an open-ended rectangle. And the students would be put into the open-ended rectangle, and he would have them not stacked completely, but like there was certainly more room. People could have stretched their legs, and he was like, no, you don't get to do that. Everybody had to be bunched up with their hands tied behind their back. And then he started teaching the lesson that way. But he brought up his first slide on the projector, and it was talking about how the slaves were arranged in the boats as they were coming to the United States. God.
He really thought that out.
Yeah. And when like it all started to click when the lesson started, we're like, oh, that's what you're doing. We're not just being taught this, we're also having to go through it vicariously. That's
it's much better than the bloody blue eyes, brown eyes thing.
Yeah. So I really enjoyed that lesson, and I unfortunately found out he stopped doing that particular lesson that way because he got
why with all this hysteria going around.
Yeah, that's a large component as to why. But he did say it was he enjoyed the fact that I remembered that lesson as much as I did. Like, that was one of those things. If anybody went to WFHS and you've had Mr. Novotny, you are blessed. There's no two ways around it. But that is one of those like pivotal moments for me in like how I view education. But that does lead us into our next question, which is, do you think there's any moments you would consider to be probably some of the most pivotal ones in your political journey? Because you've met, and not just your political journey, but also your journey as a content creator, because those are, while they're two separate ones, they do kind of walk parallel to one another.
Suppose it would be 2018 when I finally decided to break off from the cult that I was in. I think that would be the one I'd pick. Because you know how cults work. They tend to like isolate you from people that you can trust and all that.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't have full control. You know, online. If it's online, it probably isn't as powerful. You still have like your real family friend.
There's still a bunch of expectations, though.
What would happen was I would like start getting close to someone, we'd start talking to each other in chat rooms and stuff, and the cult leader would come in and just burn the bridge as soon as possible. He would like burn all the bridges as quickly and as brutally as possible, you know. I think it was September 2018, I finally just said, right, I've had enough. This isn't working. I've been here for 2 years. It's pointless. I'm just gonna cut off ties. I'm just gonna delete my old Discord account, which I had then. Delete all the other accounts I had. Just get a fresh start. Away from it all. Best choice I've ever made.
Honestly, sounds like it. And especially if it was on Discord, like, yeah, it's on the internet, but...
Well, before Discord, it was like Google Hangouts. Remember that?
I do remember that. So I was not in Google Hangouts for very long. It was like I entered the Atheist community, tried to find communities within that I could latch onto, found the Great Debates community on Google Hangouts, and that was about as far as I went. But I do remember that for the time I was there, up until the point where it all exploded. And now we just have, like, Discord and technically Facebook, but Facebook communities end up being very, very highly disorganized.
I don't have Facebook anymore. I deleted it, like, I don't know how long ago. Years ago.
Probably a mentally healthy thing to do.
I'm privacy healthy as well. I think that's the reason I did it.
Yeah, I've contemplated knocking my Facebook out every now and again because specifically, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the user Call for an Uprising. He is a content creator on YouTube who is evangelical conspiracy nut. It's hard to say what he is, right or left. It's easier to just say he's crazy. Probably the most concise I could get.
Yeah.
But there was this brief stint, and he goes in and out of these phases, but there was this brief stint where he was threatening me and my family. And one of the ways he did it was he said, I'm going to be coming to Georgia. I might take a stop at a farm first, though. And the only way you would know outside of, like, watching a lot of my content that my family, not including me, lives on a farm would be by perusing somewhere like Facebook. That would give you that information. And that kind of made me go, okay, I kind of want to either private or just delete the entire thing, because even when the call thing passes, that doesn't necessarily mean the next crazy person isn't going to go one step further than what he's doing. So I definitely think deleting the Facebook, probably a good idea from my own personal experiences.
Absolutely.
Black is asking, is he still harassing you? No, he's in a dead phase right now. He's doing his content the way he normally does. Don't worry. The cycle is he will overstep and he will say something about Hannah Reloaded, and then he will say something about me because he's got this weird headcanon that me and Hannah are dating, even though that's not the case. I've literally never met Hannah in real life, but okay. And then he extrapolates from there and then starts throwing up pictures of my real face all the time, because I guess now that I use the VTuber avatar most of the time, he thinks that showing my real face is going to cause me problems somehow. I don't know. I literally show my real face on stream all the time, but okay, sure. The ways he thinks he can get to people.
It sounds like he's got a bit of that Kiwi Farms history in him almost.
Yeah, the whole like, aha, look, let's expose this user. Let's go through their whole history and we'll make up an entire headcanon of them and literally write fan fiction about them.
Yeah.
God, finding out that I had a whole like article on Kiwi Farms about me, that was a weird day.
Wow.
Yeah. I think every leftist content creator does at some point, though. It's inevitable.
Well, sure.
It just kind of happens. So for you, leaving the cult would have been the biggest thing. Is there you'd kind of vaguely said that, you know, they would burn bridges all the time, and they would, you know, not only do that, but also create a as insofar as you can create an isolating environment on the internet. What else really went on in there? Like, can you give any details on like the meat and bones of what was going on? Or,
well, the idea was I had, you know, this is my first time when I was an ANCOM. My first time I had some grievances. I started picking up some grievances with the rest of the anarcho-communist movement. I think I had some probably views I would not agree with anymore. Like being rather amicable to, let's say, fascists in kind of a way. Like, I'd say, see Antifa doing stuff, and I think it's very bad. I think it would be very bad for the movement for them to do stuff like that.
Mm.
And through that, it eventually peeled me away from the rest of the communist community, I guess. And eventually that pulled me off into some sort of, like, egoist thing. And through there, it was very effective at manipulating me, to be honest. Like I said, well, this is your self-interest. Self-interest this, self-interest that. And that would gradually get to me, yeah. It would be pretty subtle in a way. It wouldn't be that blatant. It'd like talk about rational self-interest and things like ethical egoism and things like that. And these are real things. There are real concepts like ethical egoism and rational self-interest. But he would use them in this way that would trick me into becoming like more of a selfish person, I'd say. Stuff like that. But at the same time, I'd never like become an ANCAP or anything like that again. I still had that grounding into left-wing ideas that actually never went away, but he got me believing some questionable things, like race and IQ. That was the big one.
Ah, the bell curve.
Evolutionary psychology as well. He got me big on that.
The things where like you can technically find studies on them, but when you start looking at the citations, that's the part they don't want you to look at.
Another thing that pulled me away was I was a bit of a class reductionist. Thankfully not anymore. I used to like look at statistics who was killed by cops and think, hang on. In this specific year, it was actually true that disproportionately more Native Americans died from police than black people. It was during Standing Rock, I believe. And the idea, what happened, I ended up making videos talking about, well, it's not Black Lives Matter per se, it's more like Poor Lives Matter. I really got suckered into this thing, right? And eventually what pulled me out of it is talking to someone about Black Lives Matter. And I eventually saw their side of the argument. It just kind of clicked with me one day, and it's, hang on. This isn't happening because this person's... No. This is happening because that person's black. It was different. And from then on, I disregarded all those positions.
As soon as you basically had real-world examples of things in your lap, and you're like, okay, actually...
I think it was like a news story. I can't remember fully what it was.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Like, it basically, once you... I guess that kind of follows the same lines as what you did with atheism originally, with the evolution conversation. Okay, well, if you were wrong about this thing, what other things are you wrong about? It's the same kind of line of questioning there, right?
Yeah, sure, I guess so.
So, you have another question, and this one has the potential to get spicy depending on what we end up going into with it. But have you personally found yourself in the middle of any controversies since becoming a content creator? This is... I refuse to believe that there is a leftist content creator who gets sufficiently large that has never experienced some kind of controversy they've had to go through.
Yeah, quite early on, in fact. Non-compete called me a Nazbol. compared me with a Nazbol creator.
Moppin'?
He like lumped me in because I made a criticism of the do you remember YouTube Walkout?
Yes, I do. I remember the strike that kinda sorta worked. Not really.
Not at all. I have some strong criticisms of that, saying, wait, doing this is just de-ranking yourself in the algorithm. That was the point of the comic. It was one of my earliest ones, to be honest. Like, if you look way back, I think it was comic number 6. I might be wrong there. And that ended up getting screenshotted by Non-Compete, American Johnson. Put me next to a Nazbol creator. Oh, I wish I remembered that. I think it was Boulder Lob, the name of that. It was basically a Nazbol Stone Toss. He'd edit Stone Toss comics into Nazbol things. And he put me side by side with that. and then block me. It never gave me a chance to respond or anything.
So you might have to define Nazbol for people in chat or people who are going to watch on YouTube, because there are probably some people who are going to hear that and they're going to go, okay, intuitively National Bolshevik, but what else does that mean?
Basically means Nazi who pretends to be communist.
That's about it. That's about what I'd consider it. That's fair.
Yeah, that's the way I use the definition.
Fair. As Razor Sharp saying non-compete is a wacko. I have very mixed opinions on non-compete. Like, in terms of just raw content, I've seen stuff from non-compete that I'm perfectly fine agreeing with, and then, like, when I watch the way non-compete performs on Twitter and in live streams and everything else, I'm like, oh, please stick to a script. When you go off script, you sound very crazy.
I don't know. I don't watch his content, so...
I think... Was it non-compete who did the Pewdie Pipeline? I'm fairly certain it was non-compete who did the Pewdie Pipeline. That was when pretty much everybody learned what the word stochastic terrorism meant.
Oh, yeah. Was that during the Christchurch shooting?
Yes. That was what that video was done as a...
I've got a funny memory from then. I used to be back when I was in the cult, we were trying to, like... There was, like, an operation to kind of... an ally with Vangas. We're trying to, like, talk to each other and, you know, ally on, like, this, libertarian unity thing. You've probably heard of left unity being a thing.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, this was, like, libertarian unity. And one of the people there was a complete lolcow. Like, this guy was crazy, looking back. Do you know the Ransona? And there's a Ransona, and it's got like a purple background. It says below it, "The truth about the Christchurch shooting."
No.
A white fox Ransona. It's like dressed in a spacesuit.
No, that doesn't ring a bell at all, actually. Hold on.
Do you remember the post, "The Last Sight of Many a Commie"? It's that character holding a giant hammer with the word logic on it.
No, I don't remember that one either. I feel very uncultured right now.
Oh, I'm surprised. It was like a huge thing we mocked, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, he was one of the big, you know, the big four Ransonas that went viral on Know You Meme. One of the four alongside the dragon that endorsed pedophilia.
Yeah, I'm... Oh, wait a minute. I think I found a picture of the Ransona you're talking about. Let me throw this at you on Discord real quick and see if this is who you're referring to. Hold on. That person?
Well, I'm gonna say yes, because yeah, that's the one.
Okay.
I actually have the displeasure of actually talking with this person. Actually, she knew who and believe it or not, I actually watched that video.
I just found it.
I actually watched that video. I actually had the displeasure of watching that.
Jeez.
Before it was like on YouTube and the picture became a meme.
This is like Razorfair Gaming says I want to see it. Hold on, I'll show you guys real quick. 1 sec. Let me drop it in here. It'll take 2 seconds. Oh my god, why did that not work? I hate this weird image format that actually is like a link to a web page when you pull it away. I hate it. There we go. There's the meme from Esoteric the Free. That is...
Yeah. Or his more well-known name is Esoteric Entity. That's what he was more well-known as.
That is the most Ransona name ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And anyway, there was that one time where I accidentally started an ANCAP civil war.
What?
Yeah, that was a thing.
Okay, now I need details.
Right, well, I was kind of friends with this guy, and, you know, the cult leader was... He was also manipulating this person as well.
Mm-hmm.
And manipulating to call out one of the biggest ANCAP channels on YouTube at that time. Have you ever heard the name Mr. Dapperton before?
Mr. Dapperton, yes. I'm aware of that.
Yeah, anyway. This guy made video after video. There was this non-stop back and forth between these two, and it was like splitting the YouTube, the online ANCAP community apart. It was crazy.
It's amazing.
All started from this little cult that I was part of.
Jesus Christ. It's like the butterfly effect. You have like these little like circumstances that just end up blossoming out into madness.
Yeah, okay, I'll tell you one of the funniest things about this esoteric guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
He once took a job, no joke, where, he's like an agorist, right? He counter-economy type of thing, he doesn't want money. So he took a job where he got paid in sunflower seeds.
Why? Why would you do that? I don't... Do they not realize that the sunflower seeds are just being used as a stand-in for the currency they hate? That's all that is?
I have no idea, and the amount of room that would take, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that's like... the picture of like the amount of it was like the amount of Deutschmarks that were required to buy a loaf of bread, where they have to like wheel them around in wheelbarrows. Unironically,
like Weimar. Are we on about like the Weimar Republic hyperinflation era?
Yeah.
Right.
So it would just be that, but it's sunflower seeds now.
Even bigger.
Yeah, it's that, but even bigger. Why?
Yeah.
I guess at that point you could just be like, but with this I can grow my own money. Okay, sure. I'll just get a pocket full of sunflower seeds to go pay for my sunflower seeds over at the supermarket. It'll work, I swear. Step one, collect sunflower seeds.
It left me speechless when I heard about this.
Jesus Christ. That's like... I don't actually have functional thoughts for that. I don't. So, I know I mentioned the call for an uprising thing, where dude went, okay, I'm gonna threaten your family, X, Y, and Z, but that does kind of throw me onto another tangent. Would you say, or what would you say, is probably the absolute worst thing that has happened to you since becoming a content creator? Not, like before it's, are you in the middle of any controversies? Have you been in the middle of one? This one is like, what worst thing do you think personally happened to you throughout this? Because you've had about three-ish solid years. That's enough time for terrible things to happen.
I'd say 2.5. I'm on my 3rd year of doing the thing.
Mm-hmm.
God, I don't know. That's a hard question, actually. I guess I'd say, like, not a specific thing, but more times where you're not really catching on.
Mm.
You think your thing's dying out. Not as many people are. It's like, that is probably it. A couple of times like that.
A handful of times where you think you've plateaued.
Yeah, I guess, or even like not getting promoted. People aren't seeing my stuff. It's probably that, really.
Mm-hmm. I can empathize with that.
I couldn't think of a single situation, though. So
more like a collection of feelings more than anything.
Yes, I guess so.
Well, would you maybe have a more specific answer on the inverse of that? What do you say is the best thing that's happened since becoming a content creator?
I'd say it was the time when the trans comic blew up. That's what really catapulted me.
Which one?
Do you know the picture of there's a person pointing to a biology textbook. They open it up and then point to a passage in it that says something like...
Is this the advanced biology one?
No, it's I think it was Comic 38. Comic 38. You got the Trump guy, I call him MAGA Randy. That's his canonical name.
Mm-hmm.
Well, anyway, Magarandy says something like, wish I remembered. Actually, you know what? I can get to it.
Is it the read a biology textbook?
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one.
I can put that on screen for everybody right
now.
That
one blew up. It got like 32,000 likes, I think. And I looked at the analytics. I think it got over 1 million views, 1 million impressions, or whatever it's called.
Here we go. This should be the one right here. The read a biology textbook. Okay. Then you just get the whole spiel. Gender is not the same as sex. Biology refers to the anatomical and physiological phenotype. Gender is a category assigned by individuals based off behavior and cultural practices. One's gender need not coincide with one's biological sex. No! You can't use a modern textbook!
Thing is, you know the quote in that third panel? I copied that verbatim from the biology textbook that made this meme famous in the first place.
Jesus. So there's not even a like Ben Shapiro quote-eating.
A picture where someone's pointing to a biology textbook, right? Like you'll often see transphobes get replied to with this on like Twitter or something. They open it up and then they point to a passage that says exactly that in the I think the book's called Genetics.
Mm-hmm.
It's also purple, that's why I use the color purple for the book.
Oh, because that's the actual... Like, it's literally just the color of that book.
Yeah.
Oh, fair enough.
And I have the, like, the double helix you can see on there as well.
Yeah.
That's why I did that.
I see one of the first replies on this is like, hey, is it okay if I save this image and use it when I spot a transphobe?
Have fun.
I kind of wish we lived in an alternate timeline where that comic blew up in the era where NFTs were getting big right before the plummet, so that the first reply on it could be, "This image goes hard. Can I save it?"
My God, this was before the NFT boom, though. So
I'm glad we're in the middle of the NFT bust.
NFTs are awful. NFTs are awful.
Like, don't get me wrong. I understand that there are a lot of applications to blockchain tech, but NFTs have got to be one of the most late-stage, stupid versions of them.
You know what was happening before that? And I thought this was insane. Do you remember the graded game boom before it?
No,
Watter games?
Are we talking about the
retro? The retro video game market. Do you remember a Super Mario Bros. NES cart that went for like, I think it was $2 million. $2
million?
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to think, because that's not the most expensive NES card, I don't think, because there's also a gold version of a sports game that I think it's a little more than that.
No, that was like collection before then. Like the price of, I think you're on about Nintendo World Championships. It's got like a grey version and a gold version.
Yeah, and there's only a select number of gold versions.
This was before collection, video game collection just blew up. It exploded in a bubble, right? Before then, it was something like $30,000 or something like that. I forget exactly. And that was for like the rarest games.
And now the market's exploded.
Yeah, because of the graded game market.
I mean, that's the same issue we have in I'm not sure if you're into trading cards at all.
I'm not really.
So I'm a Pokemon player, a Yu-Gi-Oh player, a Magic the Gathering player. And it is insane to me that a card that I could buy for $50, as soon as I get it graded, magically becomes like $300 to $400.
Grading mark is a scam. It means nothing. Like things will get graded, things that they don't deserve.
Well, and the things that they use for them are like arbitrary as shit.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you watch Carl Jobst?
No, I don't.
Okay, that's where I learned about this retro game bubble thing. He usually like documents speedrunners and talks about speedrunners being caught for cheating and stuff like that.
Okay. That actually sounds up my alley because I've watched like the history of the Mario 64 and and Mario Sunshine speed runs just for fun.
Oh god, I wish I remembered who made those. They were great videos.
Mm-hmm. Somebody in our Naki Bree in chat is asking, what is grading? So grading, I'll speak from the card game side of things. For a graded card, you send your trading card off to a company, and they measure the cuts on the side of the card. They measure the wear and tear on the edges of the card. They measure the color of the white border of the card, the areas that are like the thin inside of the card where the machine has cut it. They'll measure the print of the card where the ink is aligned or misaligned. They'll measure... one of the weirdest things is, like, with Charizard, they literally measure if there's a random fucking swirl in the top right-hand corner of the hologram. And they have all of these things of, like, there's an idea, almost a platonic idea of a perfect version of every card in their vault. And the closer a card gets to their perfect version of that card, the higher its grade. The further it is from that version, the lower its grade, unless it's so far away from that version that it's considered a misprint or a miscut. And then if that's the case, it's a different market entirely. You're no longer in the graded market. Now you're in the misprint or miscut market. But yeah, it's just a set of arbitrary standards of what makes an item perfect. And then you send your item in to be measured on those standards to see if it ends up being perfect.
Well, here's the truth, what I do know about the video game market. Well, first, this has happened throughout history, and it actually happened with very similar people.
Mm-hmm.
It happened in the numismatics market, the coins, you know, collector coins and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It happened there. It happened with comic books, and now it's, like, moved on to retro video games. And the same people were, like, behind it. It was crazy. And there was, like, this collusion between Wata Games, the grader, and the auction that sold it, Heritage Auctions.
Mm-hmm.
They were, like, colluding to hike the prices so people could walk away with shitloads of money. And what this all reminds me of is, like, I thought that was stupid. I thought people buying a cartridge of a pretty common game, Super Mario Bros., for the NES, there's probably millions of copies in existence.
Yeah, it was given away like free with NESs when it came out.
$2 million. So how do we make that even stupider? We'll not even have a tangible thing. You're literally buying nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You're buying nothing. And that's what NFTs are. It baffled me from the start. I didn't even know how to comprehend it.
It's a lot of the same stuff where people will... So there's a... And I know the person who said this quote is actually somebody who watches my content, so I'm gonna have a conversation that I'm not gonna consent to later on for this statement. But I remember in Magic the Gathering, there's a resource that everybody needs called lands. It's what makes mana. Mana is what fuels all of your cards in Magic. There's a specific type of land that you can get that just the art is different. The art extends throughout the entirety of the card instead of just being a square box with some of it. And those lands that have full art are considered more valuable than the lands that don't, because there's not as many of them. They're harder to get, and just to be honest, they look prettier. I remember in the last Innistrad sets we got, both of the sets, every pack contained a full art land, which used to be really expensive and really rare, and then suddenly everybody had access to them very easily. And then the next sets came out. Kamigawa came out, and they changed it to where every now and again you'll get a full art land, but usually you will get a regular land. And within the game, there's no difference between these two things. It's just how much of the artwork is on the card, how pretty it is. And I remember this conversation, this guy, a friend of mine, says, you know, I'm really glad they changed it so that we don't get all of our lands as these special ones now. And I just went, I just like had a spit take almost, where I had to turn around and said, why is that better? Why is it better that we can sometimes get ugly lands now and not all the good ones? And he just goes, well, because now they're more rare. And I went, okay, cool. And if they're more rare, why the fuck do I care? That just makes them more expensive. That makes my life harder. Why is that a good thing? Why is things being more expensive and harder to obtain a good thing for me? Please make that make sense.
It's good for them because they probably own it. This reminds me of another instance. This was like probably a decade ago at this point, maybe even more. The first instance I saw of like digital items selling for stupid amounts of money was Team Fortress 2. And the example I remember was the golden frying pan. I think they were like selling for $15,000, I think.
Jesus.
I might be remembering that wrong, but that was like at least a decade ago, I think.
Yeah, the TF2 secondary market with like hats and all the cosmetics, that is I think that and then CS:GO had a similar market, didn't it?
Maybe. I don't fully remember because I was never really into it. I just remember that being one of the examples.
Yeah, I prefer, in my ideal world, all cosmetics in any game are available pretty much to everybody, and we just get to customize what we have based on our personal preferences. Not you pick the thing you're going to wear based on how much money it cost you, and so you walk around in a game wearing a perpetual clown suit because you spent $20 bajillion on it.
Yeah, right.
But I don't know, maybe
I think it's fine if things can be earned in-game. I think that's fine. If you can earn it with legit play and it's not a ridiculous grind fest, then it's fine.
Well, the other side of that too is like when you time gate things. I don't like it when when things are time gated in games, because now like if I quit playing a game for a certain amount of time, if I come back to it and I'm like, oh, look at all these cool things that I can't get because they're all tied to different events that happened at different points in time that I'm not privy to.
I guess one example would be like you can only get a Santa's hat for your character during Christmas time or close to it.
Hey, that's a RuneScape thing. That was a legitimate thing that happened in RuneScape, and for
doesn't surprise me.
And for a while, like the different colors of Santa's hats had different rarities because they were available at different years. Like,
of course,
same thing. League of Legends has a similar thing where like there's certain skins that are completely locked as legacy content that you can only get if you actually played during those times and either bought or earned those skins during those times.
Another example would be Minecraft capes. You had to attend Minecon, I think.
Jesus. Razor Sharp was pointing out that they want Klee for Genshin. Wait, Razor Sharp, was Klee time gated? Because I have Klee, but I don't remember if Klee was time gated. I feel like if Klee is time gated and I have Klee, I've just created an enemy. Or somebody who wants to buy my Genshin account. One of the two. Or both. Who knows? I'm hearing Braz call for Emrakul, our cat, but I'm looking around to see if Emrakul's locked in my office. But she doesn't seem to be. It's just me, the dogs, and the bunny rabbit. So you came into the game after her banner? Okay, fair enough. But no, I definitely understand the feeling of like things like NFTs, things that have no... There is no value to these, and there isn't even like a value that we can ascribe to them by just arguing that they have it.
It blows my mind. You're not even buying the picture. You're buying what is essentially a link to the picture. The picture, anyone can just download that. Anyone can do whatever the fuck they want with that. Ridiculous.
Well, and the link has a ton of issues with it as well, considering that, for one, hyperlink decay is a real thing. Like, we can...
Imagine if someone hacked OpenSea and just changed everyone's links to pictures of Goatsea.
That should happen. I believe it would be ethical for that to happen. But...
I agree.
I think the... Here's the thing that I expect to happen in 40 years, right? I expect there to be one person who bought probably, what, $350,000, let's say, in crypto, and they just used it all on NFTs. And they've got all the NFTs, you know, on their account. They've got them there. And then in 30 years, they try to sell them. And all the NFTs are rendered completely unusable due to hyperlink decay.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Because that's a thing that I think some people have already experienced, and due to the decentral nature of how the blockchain works, it's very hard to actually get your shit back.
Yeah, bitch, have fun trying to sell your 404 link for $1 million. Have fun with that.
Yeah. But I don't know, it's pretty easy to agree on NFTs being shit. I don't
know how many times I've watched the Folding Ideas video.
For me, only once, but I think it's probably going to be in my queue of, like, comfort videos to go back to when I'm on long drives.
I've watched it more than 10 times. It's phenomenal.
I think so when I watched that video, it felt really weird to me at first because he had a bunch of points backed up by data, and then he just landed on, and I thought it was hilarious, he just landed on, and the final reason is they're just stupid. Like, I thought that was hilarious.
The best part of this video is where he's like, well, people are saying, well, you haven't seen the community. And he's like, so I went to see the community.
I've got diamond hands. McGee over there who just sold his thing for 300,000. He's got paper hands. He's not going to make it.
VGMI, man. VGMI. Gonna get that Lambo.
We're going to make it. We're going to go to crypto land.
To the moon in my Lambo, yay!
It's actually kind of sad, though. Like, the
saddest part about it is the displays of wealth aren't even interesting. It's the most generic idea of what being rich looks like. It's not even interesting. Like, oh, we're all gonna go around in big houses and Lamborghinis. Okay.
It's like, yeah, cool.
It's boring rich.
And when
it's the most boring idea of what a rich person is, you know?
When everybody has the same big house and the same car, what do? Do you just go, aha, I effectively kept up with the Joneses, or are you going to go try to find a unique thing to differentiate yourself? And believe me, it's not going to be that fucking monkey picture. It's not.
Yeah.
The weirdest thing to me is that somehow people got, and I'm actually curious about your opinion on this as an artist, but I know that there's a tendency, especially here online, for us to rope our identities in with like artwork we associate with ourselves, right? I'm literally speaking through an avatar as I say this. There's a layer of irony here, but how does it feel to you to see 1,000 people on Twitter basing their entire identities off of an NFT picture?
I don't even know how to describe it. It's just sad, honestly. It's just sad. Like, what was also said by Dan Olsen in his video was, that's not really new. In the Dungeons and Dragons forum, I went around with a picture of a piece of cabbage as my profile picture.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay. Because someone was trying to say one of the benefits of NFTs was, Identity 2.0. It's just me. That's sad. Identity 3.0. Digital, unique, and scarce. Feels meaningful to me. Stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, that's not new. You can use whatever picture you want on social media to identify yourself.
Like, we've always had that ability.
Like, on my personal account, I use a picture of a fictional character I created for a fictional world I have.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Well, and then for me, I've got, like, either fan art of my avatar or, you know, pictures of my avatar that I will use all the time. And if somebody wants to copy those, okay, cool. Congratulations. Nobody's going to think you're me, but okay. You did it. You copy-pasted. You made the anti-NFT argument for me, and I didn't even have to type out the "this image goes hard" meme. And yet here we are.
I don't understand the idea of NFTs. I think the idea is that it's the idea of bringing the drawbacks of, you know, physical, tangible art, actual paintings and stuff, things that you can actually touch and hold and that, which can't perfectly be copied even if you had, like, 3D printing technology to emulate every brushstroke of the artist. There'll always be some impurity, some little tiny thing that went wrong, so you can't make an exact copy.
You've got every brushstroke, but
why are you doing that for digital art? The benefit of digital art is being able to duplicate it perfectly. It's the same exact code that dictates the color of every single pixel or every single vector within it. It's nonsense.
That is actually one of the things that I've struggled with, trying to wrap my head around why people care about NFTs to begin with. To me, one of the benefits of content on the internet is its replicatability. It's the idea that it's a non-scarcity environment. Like,
exactly. Yeah.
And in my ideal world, scarcity is a non-thing. The only types of scarcity that I want are, like, if we're playing a game and the rules of the game are things have to be scarce within the game. Okay, cool. That's a game environment. I could walk away from that if I want. But in real life, I want things to be not scarce. I don't want food to be scarce. I don't want media to be scarce. I don't want anything to be out of one's reach should they want or need it. And I mean, obviously we've got a long ways to go before that happens. But NFTs seem to fly.
I also believe in PTSD.
But it feels weird to me that NFTs are brought up and they're like, aha, look, we're taking the pro of digital replicatability and we're getting rid of it. Now it's scarce. That's a good thing, guys. My full art land.
I don't understand putting the downsides of something into replacing the upsides of something with the downsides. It just makes no sense to me.
Like, the only reason scarcity is good is if you are personally the person holding the scarce thing and there is somebody else who needs it, who wants to buy it from you. That is...
Exactly.
And because of that, that should all, at least in my opinion, that kind of should showcase the predatory nature of it. But maybe one day we'll have Star Trek replicators. Who the fuck knows?
Maybe.
Maybe. Hopefully. Well, with all of that said, I do want to say thank you very much for hopping on. It's been...
Yeah, it's been great.
It's been over an hour and a half, and we've kind of gone to a bunch of different angles in this conversation. So I do want to ask, before you go, though, because I do want to give you as close to the final word as I can, is there anything specific that you would want to talk about? Anything that you would want an audience to know over and above just go to your Twitter, follow, and go read your comics?
I think we've touched on the most important things that I wanted to get off my chest, I think.
Okay, well, that is fair. You can't say I didn't try. But
you already managed to do it. It's fine.
Well, here we are, I suppose. With that said,
someone just replied to me on Twitter, and they actually remember the cult. This old friend of mine just replied and said, "Saw the stream you were in talking about the cult of colours. That's a throwback." Yeah, because we're all named after colours.
Oh.
Yeah, so that was one thing I forgot to mention, actually.
Who got maroon?
So I was named Red. Leader of the cult was named Blue. There was also a guy called Yellow, a guy called Pink, a guy called Cyan, and many others as well.
I'm getting huge Reservoir Dogs, just flashbacks. Why does he have to have that name? Why do I have to be Mr. Pink?
I don't remember how it came around. I think people just picked those colours. Well, after I picked red and the cult leader picked blue.
How many?
I think I did that. I think I did that for a reason, actually, because I was actually the guy that came up with the colour idea. And I picked red because subconsciously I realised the other guy was more angry than me. He gets way more angry than me. He's a harebrained trigger, and I gave him the colour blue for the reason it's saying, okay, maybe I had these ideas like colours affected us in ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was very into looking at advertising psychology, how colours are used to trigger different behaviours in people. And blue
how
tends
blue
to be
is calming.
more calming, and yeah.
Yeah.
And red tends to be more exciting, dynamic, angry, rah.
We actually had to learn about that when I was a manager at Quick Trip. That was
Yep.
They literally had a whole class priming us, going, okay, Quick Trip is red because this. You want it to be red because this. We want people in, out. We want them buying stuff, and we want them gone. And I was like, oh, okay. That's why we have the color red. That's why Target is red and Walmart's blue. One of them wants you to buy a little stuff, but really quickly, and one of them wants you to spend every waking minute in there and end up on a People of Walmart page.
Oh god, I've seen that. That's crazy.
I have, as somebody who lives in the southern United States, every trip to Walmart is exposure to the People of Walmart page. Everyone.
I can understand why it would be. I've heard Walmart is a piece of shit.
Yeah, it is. To be fair, they tend to, unless you have an Aldi, they tend to have the lowest prices around usually, which means everybody goes there. Yeah, I know
we
you
have
guys...
Aldi over here. It's pretty big. And you get good stuff and it's cheap.
Oh yeah, no,
good quality stuff and it's cheap. Because it's all off-brand, you know?
Well, it's not off-brand, actually. I used to work for Aldi. It's not off-brand.
Well, the Aldis over here are mostly like off-brand stuff. There's not much, branded stuff. It's all their own brands and stuff.
The way that Aldi works here, everything is Aldi's brand, but what they do here is they broker deals with all of the companies that make, they'll broker a deal with Doritos. And they'll actually, have their manufacturing plant make a certain amount of the Aldi brand stuff and then ship it to the Aldi warehouse. They literally, that's what they do, and that's how they get their stuff cheaper, is they go, okay, we're going to broker a deal with you to have your stuff here. And it's going to be the same thing, but we're just putting our name on it. And it's also packaged a lot differently, too. I don't know, I love Aldi. I know way too much about the inner, workings of how they try to operate because I've worked there for a while. But no, their stuff is definitely, it's technically off-brand in, the loosest of senses. Because it's the name brand stuff. They just packaged it in a different package.
I think it's different here because usually stuff tastes different.
Yeah, can't say it's that way here. Most of the... You can kind of get different tastes here with, the chips. That stuff tastes a little different. If you get Aldi brand potato chips. But for most of their stuff, most packaged meats, most packaged dairy products, almost all of that ends up being the same. There's almost no difference. I can't tell a difference between Aldi's Velveeta and then, a cube of actual Velveeta. Then again, where you live, I think Velveeta is considered a sin.
Velveeta, is that the, what do I call them exactly? I guess, biscuit things usually have chocolate chips in them, often eaten as a replacement to a meal, I think. Velveeta?
No, Velveeta's the,
Velveeta. I thought you said Velveeta.
Oh, sorry, no, Velveeta. It's the blocks of cheese. That is
I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, no, Velveeta cheese is the stuff that it doesn't have to be refrigerated, and it's made specifically so that it can melt in macaroni and cheese really easily. It's the stuff
I've heard Americans are really bad with cheese.
Yeah, but it tastes wonderful. Yeah, Red Joker says the stuff you can make in a crock pot. You know, literally, like legally, we can't call it cheese. It has to be called pasteurized cheese product.
My God.
Yeah. That was...
Well, I think legally, Hershey's chocolate can't be called chocolate here. I forget.
I kind of call Hershey's chocolate wax bombs. I'm sorry. I've had, like, good chocolate, and then when I try to eat Hershey's again, I'm like, no, I can't.
It tastes like me to the shitty Easter egg chocolate you used to get from relatives who didn't care about you. What it tastes like.
Jesus. See, now I'm remembering that, like, I would always get upset if I got the really bad Easter bunnies where it was just, like, a small bunny that was hollow. I always wanted the Easter bunnies that had the eyes made of confectioner's sugar that were really hard. If I didn't have those bunnies, I was always sad.
Yeah.
Loveface says Hershey's chocolate isn't fully conched, so it's grainy. I wouldn't really call it grainy. I more waxy to me.
I would describe it as like kind of a waxy, grainy feeling. That sounds about right.
Hmm. Yeah, that's... I don't know. Well, I think that's the perfect topic to end on. Hershey's chocolate bad.
Absolutely. I think my mum tried it. She thought it tastes like vomit.
It is amazing how many foods that like are considered staples in America that like as soon as you hand them to somebody who is not from our country, they just go, "Why do you eat this?"
It's kind of the same in relation to continental Europe from the UK. That's what they say about Cadbury's. If I remember correctly, Cadbury's can't actually be advertised as milk chocolate over in most of continental Europe. It has to be advertised as family milk chocolate or something like that.
Family milk chocolate? What's the... I guess it's the same... No idea. I guess it's the same thing as, like, some ice creams here have to be called iced cream, not ice cream, because there's weird restrictions on it.
Yeah. Yeah, the EU regulations tend to be, for the most part, I mean, that's the thing, actually. Before we left the EU, we had many exemptions from typical EU regulations. People didn't know how well we had it. It's crazy.
And then Brexit happened. Every pro-Brexit argument I've ever heard always comes down to like some hard libertarian side of things where they're like, government bad, more government, more bad. EU, more government on top of government, therefore more bad. See? Logic.
Pretty much how it goes, or they just start fear-mongering about immigrants or whatever.
And then you guys get Lauren Southern. That was like one of our worst imports. Or one of our worst exports temporarily.
I don't think she's British, is she?
Lauren? No.
Lawrence, I think she's Canadian.
Well, as Canadian as Stephen Crowder.
Well, an example of someone similar that's over here, I guess Tommy Robinson.
I actually don't know who Tommy Robinson is.
You ever heard of the EDL, English Defence League?
That rings a bell.
Well, there was these protests going around, you know, like some pretty radical reactionary Muslims would have protests. There was this guy called Anjem Chowdhury. He's a fucking lunatic. And people would come out against that, and they were the EDL. I think at first it started off like we're against those people, we're against those radical Islamists or whatever. And then it just evolved into like a fucking Nazi thing, to be honest.
It's kind of like how, you're probably familiar with Christopher Hitchens.
New Atheist guy, one of the Four Horsemen?
Yeah. So
he became a neocon, if I remember correctly.
A lot of his positions... that started out as like we were against radical Islam ended up just like backsliding into Islamophobia so hard that now you get whatchamacallit, what's the... I can't remember his name for the life of me. Not Dawkins.
Sam Harris?
Sam Harris. who starts doing things like, Islamophobia doesn't exist. It's not real.
God.
And I'm just like...
It's hard to believe, actually. It's hard to believe, actually, how awful all the bloody new atheists became.
Yeah.
Like, you have... I remember... I think I went off at Richard Dawkins on Twitter because he just started promoting eugenics because it's logical. Jesus.
Yeah, I actually remember that fucking tweet where, like, I believe it was him saying, like, if you think about it, if you divorce it from all of the political parts, eugenics would actually work. And I'm like...
Oh, fuck.
Why? Why are we here? Why you? No, the man who invented the fucking word meme is now the biggest meme. Why are we here?
To suffer.
Apparently so. Apparently so. Jesus Christ. This is one of the other reasons why, like, moving into political content, it feels like it's easier to find people who I don't just want to bludgeon as soon as I find out, like, other things they believe. Because with just the atheist community, it was very easy to, like, randomly stumble upon a white supremacist. Like, you would find somebody who's like, oh, I love atheist content. And you go, okay, cool. Who's your favorite content creator? And then they would be like, oh, I love Atheism is Unstoppable.
Oh my god.
And it
That's
was
a name that brings me back.
Yeah. The rabbit kangaroo.
The guy who doxed everyone.
I don't remember if he doxed everyone.
I think he was pretty infamous for doxing people, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that's I don't know about that. The parts that I remember were like when he changed his Twitter handle to he wasn't jogging.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Well, it's good to know that the court case has concluded there and they're all guilty of murder. We know that now.
It is and what's going to happen every single time is he'll go, well, actually, if I move this goalpost a few inches to the left, I was right all along. Because dunking on creationists for doing that and then doing the exact same thing as soon as you step into politics. Great things to do, Devin. You did it.
Indeed.
You did it. But with that said, it's a 2 hours of miscellaneous topics, basically Red Joker. With that said, I do want to go ahead and get us a bit to our conclusion. So, for anybody who is watching, who is currently here on Twitch, if you have not subscribed, wow, it's a Twitter thing. If you have not followed Brioche over on their BreadPanes Twitter page, you should do so. And there is a link right there where you can do that. If, however, you are watching on YouTube, there will be a link in the pinned comment and in the description that will take you to the exact same location so that you can follow them and go ahead and look at all of their wonderful work. But, you know, only if you want to. Except I'm going to be watching every one of you. You should. We'll stalk your house. We'll make it happen. I think I've just made at least one viewer paranoid with that. With that, do you have any closing remarks before we hop off?
No, it's been good.
Fair enough.
It's been good.
Well, then
Nah, I'm done. It's fine.
Goodbyes are difficult. With that said,
I've always struggled with that.
Thank you for hopping on. I greatly appreciate you coming onto my show, talking about your history, everything that's gone on in your life, and your time as a content creator. And hopefully, should things arise and not go terribly crazy, maybe we can have you on again for another different type of conversation.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe. Well, thank you very much. And with that, I will go ahead and hop out.
Okay, then.
See you.
Bye.